Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay. So, dear Hayden.
Oh no! It's the first friend of Cassie.
What if we had our worldview and something changes? What if our world is rocked? How can we put it back together? Or is it about choosing to put a new one together?
Yeah, well look, I think when we talk about having a worldview, it's not like building a rock garden for yourself in the backyard, something made of rock that stays exactly the same each time. We've got to be realistic and think that your vision of life, your worldview, your frame, your foundation it's an evolving thing, it's a changing thing, it's an organic thing. It's going to grow. Now, none of us, as you know, is very knowledgeable. None of us knows from the beginning everything we need to know to work life out. That, when it comes down to it, is why we're given, if you're lucky, 70, 75, 80 years, because your worldview is growing with you. And parts of it you're knocking away, chipping off, rejecting. And other parts you're bringing in, like, barnacles on a rock on the seashore, you're adding to. There comes a really serious moment, and this is the moment either, if it's a positive one, of conversion, or if it's a negative one, of reversion or breakdown. There comes a moment when the facts and logic might make you see, my worldview can't accommodate any more changes. The next change has to be to let it shatter and introduce a new worldview. Now, personalising it back, that happened to me aged 21 when I converted to Catholicism. But I want to say that not all conversions are religious. People undergo moral conversions, political conversions, social conversions, intellectual conversions, when the thing just falls apart and you have to start again. Now, that can be traumatic and it can be psychologically dangerous if it just collapses like that. And part of the art of supporting one another and being supported in families is judging very smoothly and gradually, step by step, when your framework needs to change. Getting back to personal again, when I did the going Catholic thing from a Scots Presbyterian family, I myself took very gentle conversations with the family, step by step, introducing the idea, just as I was introducing myself, step by step, check the facts, get the logic right here, follow it through carefully. That's ideal. But sometimes it can be a negative thing. It can be a negative thing. And that's when you do need help and you do need to talk to people. My world is falling apart. Help me. That's actually a thing I can say to you all as fellow adults. That's a thing you hear in a university quite often. Is that what you were thinking about?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Yeah. But I mean, when I talk about these things to an intelligent audience like you lot, an audience basically of students, I sometimes use a bit of shorthand, so I say we've got to build a worldview. But that in a way is a sort of artificial way to talk. That's, one guy talking to a group. What it actually looks like in practice is a slow process of thinking, moving, altering. Yeah. We've got another question? Yeah.
What do you do if you come to the conclusion, or part of the way to the conclusion, that your worldview drives against the dominant views of society? So say someone like Cassie might be doing law because there are obvious economic benefits to doing a course like that, going into that sort of career, that you come to the view that the pursuit of private wealth is not the best thing, and people around you, if you say, I don't want to do this anymore, are going to say, why are you throwing away such a good opportunity and whatnot? What do you do when your worldview is going to be pushed against by the mainstream of society?
Well, I mean, what you must do is to, and I'm not going to make this sound easy, I hope, but you must seek authenticity. You must be authentic. That's why I'm talking about the legal thing. The first thing I said to Cassie, this is about your identity. So the worldview you create isn't just a consistent worldview, it's, I don't know your name.
Alex.
Alex, this is this is not just a consistent worldview, it's a consistent worldview which works with Alex. In other words, it suits the talents and gifts you've been given, the natural inclinations and desires that have come from nature and culture and upbringing in you. It suits your opportunities. You know, I mean, there's not much point now in me having a worldview that features me as a ballet dancer in the sense that I don't have that opportunity any longer. It's still open to Alex, folks, I'm quite sure, but not to me. So, the first part of the answer to your question, Alex, is your view has to be authentically yours, and you clearly mustn't give it up because it's unpopular, unfashionable, or countercultural. Second part of the answer to you is doing that, staying countercultural, is emotionally very hard. And I imagine that's part of what you had in mind, is practically and emotionally maintaining a view, a foundation and a framework which doesn't fit the general is going to make you different. One thing we know, we all know, me from memory, you from present day actuality, being different when you're young is both a joy and a curse, isn't it? Because you want to be a bit different. You want to wear your own clothes and express yourself in your own way and be a bit unique and a bit different. I remember that. But at the same time, when you're young, you're also a bit tense about seeming too different and not fitting in because everybody wants to follow the same fashions and be accepted by people and seen as normal and popular. I say, thank God above for people who authentically hold to a worldview that does not fit in. Because this world, it'd be the blandest, greyest of places if we all seriously accepted fashion and conformed. You know, I mean, that would literally mean that rather than all wearing these nice colours, we'd be sitting here literally and metaphorically grey in little, you know, communist style uniforms or whatever. And we mustn't do that literally or metaphorically. How do you actually go about it practically as opposed to emotionally? Easy. You just get guts and you keep talking to people. And what you find, Alex, and you probably worked this out as a smart man yourself, when you talk to people and you're a bit different. I'm not saying you are, Alex. About things like me. Alex is not different. He is the same. He is a good guy. But I was a bit different. I suppose I was sort of fairly religious when I was 21 and I was doing philosophy and all the rest of it. You find that when you talk to people honestly and openly, even if you're different, they respect the fact that you got the guts to talk to them. And some of you have probably found that. Some of you I know have strong religious faith, and even if people do not like it, they will respect you if you talk about it. What's the one I think?
Obviously the road to learning how to make good choices is not exactly one straight, narrow, easy road. It's kind of a roller coaster. I think, just out of observation, one thing that characterises our generation as Australian young people is that we struggle to develop solid resilience when we come against massive blows in life. And I wonder if maybe our experience that's quite unique, where we sort of stay at home and go to uni and we have an adult experience at uni, but it's sort of like residual teenagehood whilst trying to build our future. We maybe don't get that trial and error being an adult sort of in a real world experience. Like, what are some tips to developing resilience?
That's a really good question. It's such a hard question to answer. The really rough part of the answer has to be that you only develop resilience by getting knocks. And that's really hard. It's not a nice thought at all. But it's one of those virtues, and it is a virtue, a great, a sort of great quality of character. It's one of those virtues that you can think yourself or theorize yourself into. So you might sit down and theoretically work out, I've got to be very generous. Being generous means giving away $20 a week, therefore I will give You can't do it with resilience. I've got to be very resilient. You can't in advance do it. So you've got to let the world knock you a bit. Now, when the world does knock you and you try to get back up, the thing that happens most of the time is, in theological terms, like Jesus Christ, you fall for the third time. Yet again, you fall down, even though you won already. You have to keep going. It sounds very boringly repetitive, but almost nothing good humanly was done by anybody on his or her own. All you can do is to keep talking and asking others for help and talking about it and thinking about it. Could you tell me a bit more about the sort of, can you give us some examples of some sort of setback knocks that you might have in mind?
I mean, maybe when our idealistic views of life are kind of smashed by reality, or maybe we come into uni and think we have certain skills and abilities and measure ourselves against, all the other intelligent people that there are, and realise the reality of ourselves, or even think personal things like relationships and debts and close relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah, got it. Good, thank you. On the relationship one, if you enter into a relationship at all, romantic, friendly, or any other, sounds awful, but part of what you're accepting and committing yourself to is the possibility of loss. There is no such a thing as a love without loss. Hopefully you don't get it, or you don't get it for a very long time, but in the end there's always going to be a sense of loss. If I can do it in religious terms again, crucifixion is built into the logic of love. So if you are a Christian, Jesus Christ had to die. If you love totally, that looks like the cross. That's love. In more prosaic everyday terms that you and I experience, accepting the possibility of loss is part of the great adventure of love, either the love of friends or romantic love. In other words, it's one of the key human vulnerabilities. Vulnerability comes from the Latin word vulnus, which means wound. Accepting that you will be wounded, and we all know how painful it is, I hope, to be in love. Accepting those little wounds, really accepting them are part of how we get resilience. The key there is doing that without making yourself hard and cold and cynical. I remember that's a hard one. On your second example, your examples are great, by the way. It was the dream of the question from the social justice table, is that right? Now Professor Ramsey's favourite course at Notre Dame University. You can go and tell Professor Lovell Jones later, I said that. On the university thing, it's almost impossible, I remember at university, to avoid thinking in terms of rankings. She got a higher mark than me, she's better than me. Don't. The whole of life involves remembering all the time that you're a child. You were at the top of primary school, and then you go to secondary school and you're at the bottom again, and every year this happens. University, by the time you get to university, you tell yourself, I'm here because I've got a mind and a personality that's completely unique. If she gets higher marks than me, good luck to her. If my marks go down, let's try and get the marks up, but the point of this place is to help me identify my unique identity. They really want me to be here, and I do, I mean that. And you should want to be here, or in whatever university too. That doesn't mean that I don't care about your marks, and I don't want you all to get HDs. But HD is telling me about your study record. It's not telling me about you, and ultimately it's you that matters to me. You have another one?
Yeah.
Hey.
With sort of, obviously we're all those of us that are at university studying hard, working on everything. What if that is not what we're supposed to do for our world vision or for our goal to become like our goal for that. I mean, I've got some friends who just university doesn't work for them, and so they're in the workforce and doing what they're doing. That's where they want to build their life, and they know that. How do we know that what we are doing at this point is right for what we are going to need to have, like what we want to be in the future? How do we know that our decision now is what we want, and what if we're against that? What if we're doing something that's totally wrong and is against what we need to do to make ourselves a better person?
Okay, on the second part of that, you cannot know with absolute certainty, because part of why you're doing what you're doing now, part of why you're at university is to help you discover this worldview I was talking about earlier. And this is part of what universities have always been and allowed people to do. And this is why I said earlier, we can't just see it as a sort of training school to get a job. A university is and always should be a place of freedom. It's a place that you are brought into so you can freely discover who you are and what the world really is for you. All right? So if I made it sound earlier that you get your worldview and then you work out, yep, that means I need to go to uni, so I'll go to uni. That's I shouldn't have implied that, because that's not how it is. Part of why you're at uni is to help you clarify, who am I and what must I do? It can be, and it happens, that at the end of university you decide, well, what I want to do is not that, whatever you were doing, commerce or education or what. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I want to go over there and make lampshades and do it really well, and I'll love doing it. And that means I didn't need to put myself through the sheer nightmare of the commerce degree. But if I hadn't gone through those 6 semesters and met those friends and sat in those places and realised those things, I may not have got to the lampshade plan. Right? So that's in answer to the second part of your question. I don't think you can know until you're finished if it was right. It's one of these ladders you climb up, and sometimes you have to throw the ladder away, but you've reached the top of the wall, so it's okay. The first part of your question was about people who don't go to university. I'm the first in my family to have gone to university. My family are all excellent tradesmen. They're carpenters, so they make things out of wood. My dad and my brother and my uncle, my 2 cousins, they're not interested in exploring the life of the mind. They did something equally valuable, at least for our society, which is exploring the life of one particular craft, which they learned from a great master carpenter and have passed down through generations. And we know that craft of carpentry has a very distinguished history, a very, very distinguished history. So I think there is great dignity in this. If as a society we're sort of trying to push people unthinkingly into you must go to university, then we got it wrong. Dignity resides in a man or a woman, not in people style. I think we can do one more if we have one. There's one here and one here. Tom.
Thank you. Thanks, Professor Ramsey. I just wanted to ask if there was an alternative to Choicez being made in regards to whether you should or should not go to university in the first place to find out the battlefield of the mind and understand what the hell you're doing here to start with. I myself went to church to seek spiritual advice on that by going straight to the throne room, asking, do I go and study or don't I, and what exactly do you want me to study? So would you say that St Benedict's or a Protestant church close by, maybe Barney's, would be a good place to go to also before you make that choice, like in concrete?
Absolutely. That's a lovely question, Dom, because that lets me end our first evening just where I'd like to actually. I think, and I'm not making this a specifically religious occasion. That wasn't how I thought of these 4 weeks, though I do want to talk about faith and vocation towards the end. But I do want to say this about the faith. I think if you have the faith, as I know you and I both do, though, you have to find a way of praying constantly, because it was said by Christ that you must pray and you must keep praying. You must pray constantly. And you can't pray all the way through your lectures, but somehow you have to find a way of being constantly in prayer. For me, I found out years ago, I pray best when the prayer is short and when it comes from great need or great wish that I just desperately wish for. So naturally, on my way here to talk to you tonight, I go to St. Ben's Church and say a prayer for all of you, even though I didn't know who you were, and for me, that I can be of some use. And I don't choose what I'm saying to you about choices just now. Part of the extraordinary dialogue between nature, including human nature, and grace, is that as we speak, and as I speak to you just now, my thought is being guided by my mind and by my God in a synthesis that I cannot even begin to understand. And I think that means that there's very good reason why I should go into St. Benedict's and you should go into wherever you're comfortable and ask over and over again with great love for what you need. So I fully agree with you.
Thank you, Hayden. Cassie, did that help some of the concerns you had? Is there any chance you might be able to write a few more letters?
Yeah, I think I've got some other things that I might be able to bring up.
Good.
Same time, same place?
Same time, same place. Next week. We'll see everyone next week. Same time, 6:30. Thanks, everyone. Feel free to stick around here as well. The bar's open, food and drinks.